Good afternoon, everyone.
Howdy.
Happy Friday. We're in the middle of fall here in the middle western southern Illinois region. I've been so crazy busy today that I don't even know if the sun is shining or what the temperature is because I haven't even looked outside, let alone been outside.
It's beautiful outside, here
Oh,
at least.
perfect. That's very good to know. So this is Friday with Fran. I am Shelly, and this is Fran. Ooh, look at me. I got the direction
You
pointed
got it.
correctly. Um, and if you're joining us for the first time, we just get on here. We're two friends. We chat about things related to special education. Both of us have different experiences. Sorry, I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. In the world of special education, I'm a former teacher, still educator, still working with families and school districts within the special education world. Fran is the mother of two now grown children with disabilities, and she herself became a person with disability a few years ago. And so we just chat. We welcome you into our chat. So, how's it going, Fran?
And you can join in our chat. Please comment and
Yes. Yes. It helps a lot.
We enjoy that.
Yes.
So how's it going? It's going really, really well.
Good.
I have my nephew pup is barking in the background, but other than that,
And he's a big nephew pup.
yes, he's a standard poodle that's on the big side of standard.
Yeah. Yep. And where is Cooper today?
He's on my lap.
Aw.
He's right here. Let me see.
We don't have to pick him up. Oh, there he is.
Here
He was all comfortable, probably sleeping, and then we disturbed him. I'm sorry, Cooper.
Well, it's all right. He was listening. He was paying attention to the pup barking in the background. So, as you can tell from his ears now.
Right. Yeah. He's like, what's going on? Where are they? When are they going to bother me?
he gets pet by Yanko, so he's not real fond of that.
Yeah. I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fran,
we've been apart.
We have.
Oh my goodness gracious! Yes.
That's where I was going. Yeah. It's been a little bit of time. It's been 2 or 3 times ago that we were together in between now and the last time. And so did you do anything exciting during those times?
Well, yes, I did.
Do you want to share?
I went on a mission trip.
Yay.
Well, I had a medical procedure. Then I also went on a mission trip.
And how were those?
It was wonderful. It was a car repair ministry. And they repair cars for the students at a Bible training college or institute, and they repaired 42 cars in a church day Monday to Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, and of the mechanics, only a couple of them are true mechanics. They have their own shops. The rest of them are just guys that tinker around and YouTube what they need to know, and God provides them the wisdom. It's so neat to watch.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then I cook for them. So that's my role on the team.
So what kind of repairs do they do?
Timing belt. They do brake. Some belts changed. Some really heavy, some major repairs that cost lots and lots of money, or would cost lots and lots, and most of the time it costs them nothing.
Wow.
The ministry donates the parts, and then the labor is donated by the mechanics.
That's awesome. So, I told you I haven't looked out my window. There's something running back and forth in my backyard. I don't know if it's a squirrel or a rabbit. I can see the reflection of my window. Really? On the opposite wall, and just out of the corner of my eye, I'll see something run that way. And then it's happened this many times since we started the show. So I don't know. I don't know what's out there, but I guess as long as it stays out there, it's okay.
Yeah, if it joins you, then you might be running back and forth yourself.
Exactly. We'll see how fast I can move today.
So,
well, that's awesome.
You've gotten a haircut.
I did. Yep. Just a couple days ago. You're not too far behind.
Okay.
Yeah, it was starting to, it's that time of the year here in our area where we start wearing hoodies, or at least I do. And there it went again. I'm not going to be able to catch it because I'm only going to see it like the shadow going past the window. But you know how in our area, I like to, when it gets a little cooler, I like to wear hoodies. And so we're in that time zone now. And the length of my hair was bothering me in the hoodie because it would like just sit there and just like rub on my neck weird. So I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going back to short. So, cause it had been like kind of down to here. So, my cousin who cuts my hair was a little shocked when I told her I wanted that much off. She's like, well, that's more than a trim. Well, sorry, but I'm done with it. Get it short again.
Yeah. Well, you can tell, well, it's obvious that my hair is getting longer. Since my daughter wants it to grow long. But just the other day, she says, I asked her, how long do you want my hair to be? And she says, as long as mine. Now, my daughter has long hair.
Yes, she does.
It's at least mid back, if not longer. And it's all relatively the same length, except for where she's decided to cut it occasionally.
Right.
So I was like, that's going to take a while, bit. And she said, oh, okay, well, then you can cut it. But I'm like, I've gone through that really rough phase of where it was really in my eyes, and now it's starting to stay back. So now I might just let it grow anyway because I've already gotten through that. But yeah, it is annoying. I really enjoy short hair, so I may just cut it.
It is though. It is like a struggle though, because there is like, okay, what do I do with it? It's here. So do I put it up? Do I pull it back? And just getting all that stuff figured. I haven't had hair that, my hair for the longest time has been at least that long or longer, my bangs. So I haven't had to worry about it getting past that phase, but I do remember getting past that in early years.
Hi, Violet.
Hi, Violet. And yeah, I'm glad I've not cut it too short again, that I have to go through that phase again. You must be on your lunch break, because I thought you had to work today. It is my mom's birthday today. Yes,
I saw that.
Yeah. So
are you not going to Facebook?
It's been weird. It should be. It says it's on Facebook.
Here it is. I found it. I couldn't find it before.
Yeah, no, it says it's on Facebook. Yeah, but Violet is watching from YouTube, so that's fun. So Violet and anyone else who's watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, or if you're watching on Facebook, that you like this page, because that helps the algorithm, push us out to more people and all those kinds of fun things. Thanks, Violet. She also says she likes my short hair. So,
your hair must grow fast.
Yeah. Sometimes my grandma always used to have a thing about, if you get your hair cut when the moon is full, then your hair will grow faster. And I don't know if that's really true or not, but there does seem to be certain times when I get it cut that it grows faster than other times when I've gotten it cut. So it might be. Oh, she's already subscribed and gets the notifications. That's how she knew we were on.
Awesome. Great job.
Okay. So we're gonna, Violet's gonna be really sad when she hears this, but we're gonna take my mom out for Mexican for her birthday tonight. And Violet doesn't get to come along because she's too far away and has to do, stinky adulting and working thing. So, but yeah.
Well, wish your mom happy birthday for me.
I will. Yeah, those are Violet's favorites, my mom and Mexican. So. So you said, when I asked you what you wanted to talk about today, you said parent conferences.
Yeah, I know that they're going on in our area, and it just made me think about it. And I was like, it's like a whole can of worms when you talk about parent-teacher conferences.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly with them, and people's life experiences with them are everywhere in between. So, and I've had good, bad, and ugly all in the same day of parent-teacher conferences. So I was just interested also in how you have approached those in the past and what views you had in it.
Mine as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, or all of the above?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll start with me as a parent. Violet was a wonderful student, and all the teachers loved her, and they had no discipline problems with her. So they were always very good and very easy. Me as a teacher, most of the time on parent-teacher conference days, I was bored out of my mind because I kept in such close contact with my students' parents that they didn't feel the need to come and see me at parent conference time. So there it went again. I think it's a rabbit. I wish it was. No, it's a squirrel, because that's how we are. We're like, oh, squirrel.
Chipmunk. Yep.
Yeah. It could be that, but I doubt it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was only very rarely that I would actually have anyone come in for a parent conference. And when they did, I mean, they always went well. I don't recall any that were ever really difficult or traumatizing, or, that I was really sharing much news with the parents that they didn't know already. Now, me as an IEP coach, I haven't been to them, but no, I take that back. I actually did go to one this just recently, actually. And it was scheduled separately from the rest of the parent conferences, because typically parent conferences are scheduled, like you got this one, and then the next parent comes in, and then the next parent comes in, and so if you get, and then they're only for like this amount of time for each parent. And so if you get beyond that amount of time, then that throws everybody off. And so I was really impressed with this school that they scheduled it basically with the entire IEP team and the parents to have the conference.
Really?
Yeah. And we had it for one whole time around the clock, almost one whole time around the clock. And nobody seemed like they were really trying to, get the parent out the door. They seemed like they were really open to answering the parents' questions and sharing what was going on. And it was just really, really nice. Now, I don't know if they do that for all of their parents, or if they just knew that, that's what this parent really wanted because the parent had requested it that way. But just the fact that they were even willing to do it, I was really impressed with that they were open to meetings, because I think we actually have an IEP meeting scheduled with this family, like in a couple weeks from now, a couple Sundays to Sunday, church days to church days. So, yeah, I was just really impressed with it. And like I said, everybody was very cooperative and nice, and very open to sharing things and answering the parents' questions. And so what have been some of your experiences, since you said you sort of had all three in one day?
Yeah. Well, what comes to mind was, I guess it was junior high. And the way they did it was kind of just, it was very different. You went in and you found a folder with your child's work in it. And then if you wanted to meet with a teacher, then you had to go hunt those teachers down in their classrooms. They were all in their different classrooms. And it just seemed kind of hit or miss. And then one of the teachers was kind of like, didn't even seem to know about whom I was speaking.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, my child has a IEP, so I would really think you would have to know a little bit about it because you're supposed to be following it.
Right.
And Oh, I didn't realize they had an IEP. Well, they do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not good.
So that was the ugly. And then I met with another teacher to go over this paper that had been written. My daughter had written, and it was very graphic in what was written about what was going on. It was a situation, and we communicated, and she had high concerns about it and was hoping that I would come in and so she could talk to me. Otherwise, she was going to call. And so that meant a lot that this teacher was already vested and interested and had read this, and it had triggered red flags for this teacher as well.
Yeah.
So that was the good. And then I just had another teacher that was just kind of indifferent. Well, just gonna have to try harder. And I was like, okay. And do you have any suggestions how to help?
Right.
Well, just do what everyone else does. Okay, well, what is everyone else doing? And
right.
how do we go about, and if we're doing that already, what else can we do? Right. I wasn't asking for special treatment. I was asking for the IEP to be followed, and I was asking for suggestions on how to increase our chances of passing the class.
Yeah.
Nothing extraordinary.
Yeah. Some teachers just can't hear that sort of, question, or maybe they can hear it, but they don't fully understand what's being asked. Because I hear things like that frequently. Well, if they would just try harder, well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. They just need to put in more effort. Well, they're already spending, all these hours doing their homework and studying. How much more effort can they put in? Is there some other suggestion you have? No. Okay.
And it's hard as a parent when you want your child to succeed and you're met with such indifference.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have an actual IEP meeting as soon as we're finished here today, and I'm curious how they're going to respond because it's for one of my educational surrogate students. And I read over the IEP, and it's not where I want it to be.
Right.
And so, it'll be interesting to see if they hear what I'm suggesting, and, if we can come to a certain agreement, because they're used to writing the IEP a certain way. And I'm asking them to think outside the box. And I've not been met with the open wide arms, yay, come in and help us. I've been met with this. No, this is how we do it. So, not at this particular school, at other schools with my educational surrogate students. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes this afternoon. So we will have to end just a little bit early, not much, but just a few minutes early. So with your parent conferences, what sort of work samples or what sort of information did they give you? Like hard copies of information? Did you get anything ever?
I got some written examples and a couple of tests, but I wasn't really sure why I got the tests because it wasn't really helpful to explain the thought process in the learning process. For me, it just showed me a grade.
Gotcha. Yeah. So was it like the standardized tests or was it classroom-based tests?
Classroom-based tests.
Okay. Because I know we were always getting the school year, not the one that we were in, but the one where the kiddos had finished. We were getting those results from that former year right before parent conferences would happen. And so we were always told, oh, you can hand out their standardized test score, their state test results when you have parent conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, most of my students didn't do, fabulous on those tests. I mean, most of my students met or were close to meeting a standard, but it didn't affect their curriculum. That's one of my biggest complaints about state testing is when those results come in. But yeah, so normally I would just hand them to the parents and go, okay, here's the results of their state testing from last school year, and they're like, okay. So that's why I was asking, because I know for us, when we would have, because we would have around this time of the year too, and that's always when those, I don't know if that's still when those state test scores come in, but.
I think in high school I got the state test.
Okay.
Maybe. It kind of changed, like with my son versus my daughter. And then also my daughter, it depended on how her IEP was handled. If I was meeting with that teacher that was, I guess, like her case manager,
mm-hmm.
versus if I was just meeting with regular teachers.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when they would have parent conferences, normally is at the end of a quarter. And with an IEP, they're not all set up this way, but many, many of them, in fact, I would say, almost all of them, but not all of them, are set up to send out progress reports for the IEP goals and objectives at the quarter mark. So did you get your progress reports after a parent conference, or did they sometimes give them to you at parent conferences, or do you really even remember because it's been a while?
Sometimes they would be given to me then, but it was kind of counterproductive to give it to me then because I couldn't read over it and then ask questions.
Right.
And most of the time I think they would just be sent home following.
Gotcha.
So, and I know this probably sounds really bad, but I didn't base a lot off of the progress reports because I didn't always feel that the goals that were written were appropriate. So I didn't really care. And I know that probably sounds bad, but
bye, Violet.
I had certain I had certain goals in my own head that I was hoping to accomplish by the time my children aged out of school.
Yeah.
And it didn't always line up with the IEP goals.
I wished I would have been doing this while they were still in school. Especially.
Yes, I wish you had, because I've learned so much from you and listening to you and just watching. And there are so many things I wish I had done differently, but I didn't. But I wanted to think about how I prepared for the parent-teacher conference, how you prepared for it, because I think there's some key things that we can do to help those conferences to be most effective, to get the most out of it, most bang for your buck. Don't you?
What sort of things?
So what do you think?
No, it was your idea. You have to go first.
No, I was asking you.
Well, I mean, my preparation as a teacher is different than your preparation as a parent. And, like I said, for my parent conferences, I didn't have to do much, either as the teacher or the actual parent. So, I mean, I know I did speak to a teacher recently, and they're having a student soon whose IEP will be changing, or they're proposing that it will be changing. And she said, how do we talk to the parent about that? And she said, do I say something at parent conferences? I said, absolutely. Give the parent the opportunity to process what you're saying so that when it comes to the IEP meeting, they're not having to get brand new information and try to process it then. And she seemed kind of shocked. She was like, "Oh, really?" She says, "You mean like tell the parent that we're considering going from," I think they were going, dropping the number of minutes. And I said, "Yeah, because, that's very important information." And, then the parent can ask you questions between the conference and the time of the meeting, and maybe get some things clarified that they wouldn't feel comfortable, or there would be that time constraint, and there maybe wouldn't even, be the time to get it understood. And then because sometimes it's a shocking blow that we have to get used to. And so if we have time to get used to something, then, if we can accept something, I guess is the way to say it, that we approach things better, even though we may not like it at first. If we have time to think about it and we have time to process it, then we think maybe it's not so bad.
Right.
But if you do that at a meeting, at the actual IEP meeting, then it can create stress. And I've had lots of parents tell me, well, if they knew they were going to do that, why didn't they tell me ahead of time?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's one way that if you have a meeting coming up, an IEP meeting not long after your conferences, talk to the parents. If you have an IEP meeting, later in the school year, and that you're going to propose a big change, either an increase in a big increase in services or a big decrease in services, reach out to the parent and say, "Hey, I want you to know, this is something that is going to be discussed." When in Illinois, we have to send the draft copies home now, like this many school days before the meeting. A lot of teachers and school districts still aren't sending the proposed number of minutes or services or things like that. And that's oftentimes the thing that the parent needs the most time to think about and come to terms with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the IEP. So in my opinion, hey, Alex, glad you're here. In my opinion, that's part of what you should be sending home as the draft. I mean, you still put on there that it's a draft, but this is what you're proposing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so important for both sides. I mean, we've talked about it also as a parent. If you're wanting to propose something, don't just drop it at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm thinking of that, for me, it's writing things down,
mm-hmm.
so that when I go in, I know that which I would like to speak about, rather than fumbling around and then walking out going, "Oh, I really wanted to discuss, but
right,
forgot."
Yeah. Having a checklist, and I advised a parent of that yesterday because she just had an IEP meeting and thought things were going to be a certain way based at the meeting. And then right after the meeting, the school called her and said, "Hey, we're going to put your child with this teacher instead of the teacher that was at the meeting. And, are you okay with that?" And then they did some other things. And so now the parent has a lot of concerns. And I said, write all your concerns down on a piece of paper and make some space to take a note underneath each one of those concerns, and then have a face-to-face conversation with the members of your child's education team, whether that's, the full IEP team and you call a full meeting, or you just call an informal meeting and say, "Hey, I don't understand some of these things. I thought I understood." But then give yourself that opportunity to say, "Okay, we've talked about this one. I've taken my notes. I understand this. I'm comfortable with this." And then move on to the next thing. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people don't like that because they feel like it's too much of a meeting, or there's too much discussion, or I don't know. But you have the right as the parent to be understanding every part of the IEP. So I think sometimes it feels like when they do things like that, like, okay, we had this big long meeting, and it was a long meeting, and we thought, okay, the parent had one idea of how everything's going to go, and then they the day afterwards call and say, well, we're going to change it now, but we're not going to change it on paper. We're going to leave it the way it's written on paper, but we're going to change it in reality. That feels a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it is necessarily, it just feels that way. So yeah, I definitely think it's important to write down your thoughts that you want to talk about.
And also, I think if you have them, have a praise about the teacher. Mm-hmm. Because all they hear at parent-teacher conferences is the negative a lot of times. And they're humans. And to hear a good thing is often can buoy their day and encourage them to do those good things more.
Right. Yeah. I think that goes both ways. You know, parents should have a nice thing to say about the teacher, and teachers should have a nice thing to say about the student.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've said this recently as well, not recently anymore, but I said this a while ago, but it still holds true that even if you're not 100% happy or even a little bit happy with your child's teacher, this is a very tough year for teachers all across the country because of the massive teacher shortages and substitute shortages.
Mm-hmm.
Let your teacher know that you appreciate them showing up every day. You know, because at least they're there, at least they're trying. They might not be reaching the expectations that you have or your desires, but at least they're there.
Yeah.
So if that's all you can say, just thank you for showing up every day. I know it's tough this year. Because our teachers that are going in every day are feeling exhausted and beat up. And some of them are actually getting beat up physically because some school districts have said, you just got to let the kid do whatever they need to do. If that's beat on you, if that's spit on you, if that's throw snot at you, you can't discipline them. Which I don't agree with. But
what life lesson are we teaching these students when we allow that to happen?
Right. Yep. But there's not necessarily support staff to remove the child or teach the child in a different setting. And that's been the answer to the problem. Well, just let them do it. Well, that's an answer, but it's not a good one.
No. And hence why many are fleeing the education field.
Yep. So that goes back to that thinking outside the box. You know, we got to figure out ways to solve this problem.
Yep.
And involve the parent and involve the teacher at a parent-teacher conference.
Bring it full circle. Here we go.
That's right. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm trying to think, if you're a parent going to a conference, I think one of the best ways to prepare is to know that it is not the time to bring up all your concerns, because there isn't going to be enough physical time on the clock to do it. So be prepared that it's just a very short kind of, I mean, at least the ones that I ever did, it was, they had maybe from the 12 to the 3 on the clock to have a parent conference, and that was it. And you can barely give information. And like I said, if they have to give the standardized test scores, and if they were supposed to try to explain those, or if they're handing out their report card and they're trying to explain the report card, they're really, I mean, I know it's called a conference, but it's really not. Mm-hmm. It's, you're going to get some information. You might be able to ask one question or two questions, and then you're going to have to go. So know what your most important question is before you go in there. And then if you don't get that answered, don't try to take their time then and say, okay, I'd like to, I appreciate your time now. I know there's people behind me that have, scheduled their time with you. I'd like to schedule another time to continue this conversation, or to have, a more thorough, in-depth conversation or whatever. And then step out and be respectful of the people in line behind you, and the fact that, it's not the teacher who set these time frames.
Mm-hmm.
The school has set the time frames and said, these are the, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, 20 minutes. And then they have however many students, they need to see all of their parents. So that would be, I guess, my advice.
I know at one point I scheduled a back-to-back slot because I knew I had a lot, and I asked if I was allowed to take, if they had time for that, and they said yes. But I wasn't able to do that all the time. Just this one time I was able to.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you asked and they were willing to do that.
And I scheduled it at the end of the day so that I wasn't.
Right. And we do have to be respectful of, especially at conferences. I remember, well, our conferences, always, we had one day that went into the evening hours so that people could do their full day of work and then come to the conference in the evening. For teachers, those are extremely long days because they don't usually leave between their normal teaching day and the day, the rest of that time for conferences. And so, if you are the last one, try to, even if your schedule has, it's not your fault that everybody else has run late, take your however many minutes you were allotted and then let the teacher go home.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some teachers this week in a class that I was teaching, and I was telling them, I'm like, you have to set your boundaries, and then you have to try to stick to those boundaries, because that's another reason we're losing so many teachers is Cooper's like, oh, I don't know what you must be scratching him because he's like
scratching his neck. Sorry.
Yeah. But they're getting burned out because they don't feel like they ever are away from it, and so allowing them to have their evenings or their weekends and not expecting them to answer emails the second you send it, or if they've given you their cell phone number, be very respectful with that. Okay, if you have a question, that's but make sure it's a question that you really need to have an answer to if you're asking them at night or on the weekends. So they're humans. Right. They have families. They have lives. So yeah, that's another thing. I was never good at that, by the way. I was never good at setting those boundaries. Well, I was good at setting the boundaries, but I never adhered to those boundaries. But I mean, I also didn't have parents, that were messaging me at all hours of the night or emailing me at all hours of the night or on the weekends. I did occasionally have that happen. And I did have parents that, they had my cell phone number. And, I did say, if you need something and you think I can help, then reach out to me. And if I can, I will. But, I'm not on call for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you call me or you text me, you might not get an immediate response, and I'm sorry, but I have a life too.
Yeah, I had the number for a few of my kiddos' teachers, but I think it also helped that my mom was a teacher. I understood that.
Yeah. Yep. And if the teacher
doesn't a text of, hey, they're not going to be in today, just so you know.
Right. And if the teacher doesn't give you a personal way to contact them, don't be offended. If they only want you to contact them through their school email or the school phone, it might bother you, and I understand that. But again, they're teachers are people and they have lives. And, if you want them to continue to show up every day, we have to respect them and the stress that they are under.
Yep.
So anything else about parent conferences that we didn't cover, or have we covered what you...
I think we've covered it. Because they were happening in my district, I thought it would be good to touch on them. And also just to see where, obviously, our conversations don't stay strictly with, so what else it leads to. And
yeah. Well, and the one thing that I do want to say, for anybody who might be watching who has a child in school right now who has an IEP and you are getting progress reports, is those progress reports should be very clear and specific. They shouldn't just say something like your child is making sufficient progress. It should be, basically their goal rewritten with updated information. And there shouldn't just be one or two words to say making progress, not making progress. It should say, the percentage that they're doing something, or the number of trials that they've attempted it and how many times they were successful, or, that if it was a behavior and we're trying to decrease that, behavior, how many times it's been decreased, or, and then they should be sending you the data that they've used to give you that summary, because the progress report is truly just a summary of the progress. So the actual data that comes with it, that they've used to determine, and you'll know what those criteria are because it says on the goal, whatever the goal statement is, and then it'll either be little check boxes, or it'll say on there, that this will be evaluated by daily classwork or tests or charting or observation log or whatever. Those are the raw data that they should be sending you. And if you're not getting that information, or the progress report is very vague, then you want to talk to the teacher and get that clarified or get more information. Because again, as a parent, you're supposed to be an equal member of the child's IEP team, and you can't be equal if you don't have the same information.
Good point.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I didn't always send the data home. Some of my parents didn't want it. I didn't necessarily think about it always. So it's a friendly reminder if they don't give it to you to ask them for it. Don't go in demanding it, because some teachers don't even know that they're supposed to send it to you. And they don't know that just writing making progress or sufficient progress isn't enough. So, just be gentle in talking with them and telling them what you need and why you need it.
I think being courteous and cordial goes a long way from both sides.
Yep. Absolutely. I concur with being courteous and cordial.
Cool.
I'm out of words. I can't think of one. I was like, all I could think of was like courageous. Cooperation, yeah. Collaboration.
Or you'll be in a conundrum.
Oh, so true. Or a kerfuffle.
Oh, Alex has one.
Crazy. Yeah. A kerfuffle.
You do, and you'll clean it up.
Yeah. Kevin said that in his class the other day. He's teaches high school, and the kids were like, "What? What did you just say?" And then they took it and they made it into all kinds of things that he did not say, and so then he was like, "Okay." But yeah, they were like you. They were like, "What does that word mean?" It means a hiccup, basically. So it's just a fun word to say. All right.
So have we covered everything?
I think so. I mean, it was your topic.
Cool.
So if you think that we've covered what
I think we have.
Okay. Well, then I am going to wrap up a little bit early, which will give me about this much time between now and my next meeting versus this much time. So
That's fine.
I might go grab a bite to eat. I don't know that I've had one of those today because I literally started at 7:30, which is 7:06. And
Really?
I have been in meetings ever since that point. So this will give me a little bit of a break.
Okay.
All right. But I think we're here next week. I don't think have plans to do anything else. There will be a time in November that Kevin and I are going to take a getaway weekend that I won't be available. But I think that would be a great day for you and Alex to run the show that day by yourselves.
Well, I have a time in November. I will be gone as well.
Oh, okay.
It might be the same.
Well, that would be nice if it coincided, but, I don't know if it will.
And we coordinated.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, on that C note, have a good week. And we will see you back. I still haven't figured out it just ran past my window again. I'm going to go outside. That's what I'm going to do on my break. I'm going to go find out what's in my backyard.
Okay.
All right. And remember, you're never alone.
Nope.
We're always here. There's somebody to talk to. If you need something, reach out to us. If you need something more serious than what we can help you with, there's 988 for mental health concerns, and there's 911 for any other emergency. Have a great week, everybody.